What is good, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Talkin Hoops with Kev Luke. We are back at it again today. I'm glad to be back speaking to you guys. I got a very special guest in the building with me today, and there's none other than Nathan Snell. Nathan, welcome to the show, and how you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Thanks, Kevin. I appreciate you having me on, man. This is a wonderful opportunity. I finally actually get to meet you
Mhm.
virtually. We connected. We've connected several times, but it's good to be on here. Thanks for having me.
Yes, sir, man. As always, shout out to Team MBS, man. Nathan's a part of the crew. I am as well too. So shout out to Joe, the boss, and the rest of the crew. But
Absolutely.
y'all see the title, man. We're talking about the Terps today. We're talking about the DMV as a whole, really. I want to start right there because of the importance of the DMV when it comes to basketball and just the world period. But we're going to talk about basketball today, of course. And so I got to ask you about the DMV's cultural significance and impact as a whole, because, I mean, you just look everywhere. I feel like no matter what level it is, the DMV has some type of ties to it, right? Whether it's college, the NBA, the WNBA, high school. Maryland is a significant basketball state in our country, man. So can you just tell the people about the DMV as a whole?
I think no matter what, I think history has shown that the DMV is always going to be that blueprint of developing players, whether they're going to college, professionals, no matter what. For example, Maryland women's basketball just got their 5-star. Jayla, we hadn't seen that since Angel Reese. So it's good to see like we're tapping in, not just Maryland, but other schools are tapping into the DMV and saying like, damn, like there's some good talent here, like Good Counsel, Bishop McNamara, other schools like that. And it's not just for basketball, football too. The high school I went to, they got uh, a 4-star, if I remember correctly, and I'm hoping Maryland's on his radar because, like, it's just the amount of talent, and I think it just also kind of lets you know, like, as a Maryland is at the DMV as a whole, like we're not going to go anywhere in terms of sports.
Yeah, man. I always had love for him. I mean, you look at, again, KD, Elgin Baylor, God rest his soul, Adrian
Mm-hmm.
Danley, even Victor Oladipo, one of my
Victor
favorite players
Oladipo,
at the DMV, man.
Roy
And
Hibbert.
exact man, you can keep on going. And as you mentioned, the high schools, right? We got the Mather, we got Paul VI, we got Gonzaga College, St. John's, the
Yep.
WCAC alone, right, is a historic high school basketball conference that's produced a ton of talent, right?
Yep.
And so, I mean, again, even the AAU programs, right? Team Takeovers won multiple PGM championships the last 5 years. Team Durant has produced really good players into the league and at the college
Mm-hmm.
basketball level. New World AAUs come around on the Adidas side for 3SSB. And of
Yep.
course, I got to shout out the DC Blue Devils because we already know, if you know basketball, you already know the DC Blue
The Blue
Devils
Devils,
is nothing like that, right? So they're the cream of the crop. So
most
yeah, man,
definitely.
I gotta give the DMV their flowers because, again, just everything that they represent, again, the players that they produced, and everything just is top notch, top quality, man. So big salute to the DMV. But that leads me to
Most
our next
definitely.
question, and that is about the Terps, man, because Maryland, I feel like, is a huge, I don't even just want to say a college basketball brand, but just a huge brand, period, from a university standpoint, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you see that red M, it's just different. And especially on the basketball side of things, the women's
Right.
side and the men's side, we're going to talk about both those today. I just got to ask you, man, you told me you grew up a Terp fan, you attended the school. What were some of your favorite memories of Maryland basketball growing up?
Oh wow. Well, obviously, a lot of people are going to say obviously when the men's won their first national championship, 2002. Led by Gary Williams, and then Brenda Frese, her winning the national championship 4 years later. Um, but I just think seeing as the each program has progressed, kind of like seeing players like now, for example, like in the professional leagues, like I kid you not, like when I this is a couple years ago, uh, they do something for Selection Sunday as with the Lady Terps, and Brianna Jones, she former Maryland Terrapin, and just was like awestruck because I was like, oh my god, I just saw Brianna Jones. Like, here's somebody I saw on TV, and now it's like an assistant. But no, man, it's just those are two memories I'll stick out the most. Um, I will say the Mellow Trimble game winner. For some reason, that to me will always stick as a top 3 Maryland Terrapin moment for me. Because Melo, I just don't think really gets the recognition as a guard. I know he definitely lacked in some ways certain skills, but no matter what he gave, he went out there and gave you max effort, no matter what. So I feel like that game winner for sure was one of my favorite memories. Maryland baseball, I forgot who we lost. I think we may have been Vanderbilt in the first round, I want to say, of the World Series. That's another memory. Obviously, I mean, more recent Maryland football. I always was a big fan of Ralph Friedgen. He produced some great Maryland teams, and then once he retired, moved on. It really wasn't the same until really Coach Loxley got there. I know, like he's won 3 bowl games. I know people have been kind of on him about winning the big ones. So those are my memories, I would say, the most.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that for sure. I mean, when I look at Maryland basketball, I mean, of course, I got to shout out Lefty Drizel. He was ahead of our time, ahead of my time at least for sure. So,
yes,
I didn't get a chance to witness him, but you mentioned Melo Trimble, and I'm so glad you said that because I was going to bring him up because Melo Trimble, even as a Michigan State fan, was literally one of my favorite players in the Big Ten while he was there. That dude's crossover, his ability to lead teams, the clutch moments, the finishing around the rim, the 3-point shot. This dude was a complete guard. To this day, I do not understand how it worked out or how it didn't work out in the NBA because he was just that good. Like, I loved Melo Trimble, bro. Like, Melo could get anywhere. And, again, even like Aaron Wiggins, right? Aaron Wiggins gave us a lot of problems for my Spartans, right? He gave us a ton of hell, and he was good. And shout out to him winning the ring this year for OKC being an intricate part, in their season and finally getting their first championship. And I mean, you can go back, Steve Franchise, right? Steve Blake,
Steve Blake,
all these guards.
Joe Smith,
Joe Smith, Grievous Vasquez, Juan Dixon, right? Like Maryland is
Chris Wilcox.
That's a name right there. Shout out to Chris Wilcox, bro. That's what I'm saying.
I will say this one name. I don't think I wish, and sometimes, and my dad, talked about this years ago. I think if he'd have stayed a couple years, Diamond Stone. Yes, I think he had the tools. I think to be a great player.
He ended up going one and done.
Yes, he did.
I remember that. Yeah, that's crazy. Yep. Yeah, so I like Diamond Stone's game too.
Yep, but also too, you mentioned Michigan. That's another thing I hated every time with Maryland, those Michigan State matchups. I hate it. Especially Denzel Valentine. I could not stand it. But shout out to Denzel though, man. But I just could not stand that matchup.
And it's funny because Maryland's one of those teams. I feel like between Purdue, of course, Michigan, Wisconsin, I throw in there, and Maryland, I feel like that crop of teams when we play them in basketball, whether it's on the men's or the women's side, is always highly competitive games.
Competitive.
Even the women's game this year was crazy, right? You guys ended up winning, but it was a great all around game. And of course, I wasn't gonna touch on it, but the men's game this year, winning off the game winner. I was gonna say that. I was gonna keep that away.
Oh yeah, man. I still think that was a crazy. I couldn't believe it. I was sitting there thinking, okay, like that's another missed blown game like that, and it was ironic. Like it was like this. All the previous games we lost like that, the exact same way, and it just was like again, and yeah,
man. But I mean, speaking of this past year's team, man, I want to touch on them because you had the Crab Five, right? Yes. Kevin Willard, brought in Jacoby Gillespie from Belmont, Rodney Rice, local kid from Virginia Tech, Selton Miguel came over from University of Southern Florida. Derek Queen, of course, native of Maryland, shout out to Baltimore, of course, going in the first round this year to New Orleans Pelicans. Had a dominant freshman year, had a legendary freshman year, in my opinion, that he capped off in the Sweet 16, or excuse me, in the second round, and ended up in the Sweet 16. Yep. And then Julian Reese, I want to touch on. I think I want to first ask you about him because this is a dude who, of course, is another local product, and he stayed through the coaching change between, going from Willard or going from Turgeon to Willard. So just overall, I mean, again, you guys went to the Sweet 16, 27-9 overall, tied for second place in the Big Ten with a 14-6 record. Just talk to me about this past season's, team, what they accomplished, and just what they did for the university as a whole?
Well, I think context of that is the year before. I think when with Kevin's first year, I think to get to the tournament with that team, um, I think it exceeded expectations. And then the next year, he didn't really build off on that, and then I think it got stale, and Kevin had to kind of go this past season in the portal and kind of okay, I have to fix it. I still didn't think my concern going into this past season was the bench, but I thought we did a great job. Um, I felt like for the most part, we showed that I think we can compete with those at the top of the Big Ten. I always thought Julian Reese was a good player. To me, my only thing is I think he plays better when there's a true five next to him. You know, when you have a Gillespie, a Miguel, doing things where it's not all on one person, it makes a big difference. I mean, what Coach Willard did, for this team, I'm not saying that can't be replicated, but I just think for kind of how we've seen Maryland men's basketball even before he got here under Mark Turgeon, it just it gives you a refresher of what Maryland basketball should look like. When you invest, and also too, like when I think everybody's bought in to the vision. So, yeah.
Yeah, man, I thought it was a great season, and we're gonna talk about what kind of put a dark cloud over it, but overall, I mean,
Mhm.
having Derek Queen have the season that he had, having Jacoby Gillespie as your lead guard be dominant, right? Rodney Rice, I thought was one of the best shooters in the country this past season, and
Yeah.
so I thought overall, Willard, the team as a whole, and everybody involved did a great job of just assembling this team and kind of just maximizing it, right? I mean, you guys go to the Sweet 16. I mentioned, Derek Queen had the game winner versus Colorado State. You end up losing to the eventual national champs in Florida, and it's nothing wrong with that, right? Sometimes you just got to
No.
tip your cap and salute because we've seen that team was really, really good this year. So
At the moment I saw them, I was like, we look like little giants. It was over. From the first four possessions.
Mhm.
Yep, it's a wrap.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, shout out to them. We touched on them a little bit a few episodes ago, but I mean, Walter Clayton and all those guys, that front court rotation, the job Todd Golden did, I thought they were arguably the best team in the SEC all year. Them and Auburn, you can make a case for
Auburn,
maybe a
yeah,
couple other teams, but regardless, you got to salute them. But
absolutely.
with that, as we rounded out the season, right? I want to say it was in between like the back end of Big Ten conference play and right into the Big Ten tournament. You had the Kevin Willard rumors swirling that he was going to essentially end up leaving the job at
That's right.
Maryland and just going somewhere else. I mean, you've seen him taking jabs at press conferences at the athletic director, who I believe left for, was it SMU, if I'm not
SMU,
mistaken?
yes, that's correct.
Okay. So you had him taking shots in the media to his former boss and athletic director at Maryland, who, of course, as you just mentioned, went to SMU. And of course, the rumors were he was going to Villanova, where that's exactly what ended up happening. He's now up there in Philly, in North Philly. And it kind of just put a damper on what I thought was a great season. And I hate that it played out like that because
For sure.
outside of that, everything was pretty much amazing for the most part. So just how did you feel about it? How do you feel about him leaving, going to Villanova? How do you feel about him feuding with the athletic director and just every part of this Kevin Willard drama and rumors going around during this time at the back end of the season?
Well, to start, when I first heard about it, a buddy of mine, he sent me a text, and he was like, "I don't think this is true, but it's leaning towards it." And I'm thinking, why is this coming out now? Because it initially started out on Twitter. I forgot who reported it, but I know it was somebody from Villanova. I think that reports on them, and then like I think especially like I said around as the tournament was beginning, then it really started circulating, and I think it got to a point where the amount of think pieces and the amount of I just think it just was getting frustrating because like if you're leaving, you're leaving. just be upfront. Like I wouldn't look at the man any different. I mean, he came in here and I felt like what he did was he kind of changed. He kind of brought a light to a situation in terms of Maryland, in terms of NIL. We should be better with NIL. We should be better with going after and investing in players. If you want to be a great college like Florida, like Auburn, Houston, you're gonna have to, or Duke, you're gonna have to spend some money. Now, Damon Evans, I wish him all the best at SMU. My understanding, I think the moment he got there, I know he made some immediate changes. I know he fired, I think it was the women's basketball head coach first, and I think he fired a couple other coaches after that. But but Damon gave more love to the football team than the men and women's basketball team, which, looking back on it, that is disingenuous, because especially, like the women, respectfully, they've had more success than the men's basketball and football team on paper. But no, I thought, especially at that press conference, it was just right around the Elite Eight. No, it was round 32. That's when I knew he was ready. That's how I knew he was checked out, personally. And then I think to not have the respect in telling your players in person, hey, I took this job and I'm going to move on, instead of doing it over a Zoom. I did have an issue with that. So.
Yeah, I mean, you hated to see it, right? You hated it for y'all fan base and just everybody involved, because I don't know. I just feel like around that time, I mean, you got the transfer portal kicking off, right? Right in the opening rounds of the NCAA tournament. It's just too much going on, and of course, it's hard to have any real expectations for the NCAA because we know they're just stubborn and stuck in their ways. But they got to figure out something when it comes to these coaching searches and the portal, all just being super active when the season's not even over, right? When teams
Absolutely.
are still, having games and having things on the line and having something to play for. So we got to figure it out, man. We're going to see about Willard at Villanova. I'm very curious to see how it's going to pan out, right?
Because he essentially got a blank check.
Yeah.
So
and look, you're going to the Big East, right, where basketball is everything, right? It's no football to worry about. This is one of the best conferences historically. And again, you're at a huge program that's had major success for a long time, right? So we'll see how it plays out. But at least it's the Buzz Williams, because
yes,
I love Buzz Williams. I'll be honest with you. Like, I rock with Buzz Williams. I think he's one of the more overlooked coaches in the country. I wouldn't say underrated, because I think he gets his credit and I think he gets his flowers. But Buzz has pretty much had very high standards and success at every stop he's been at, right? Between Marquette, he was the last coach to take Virginia Tech to the Sweet 16 in 2019. He was at Texas A&M for the past 6 years in the SEC. Yeah. And so I just think he kind of – I don't like coaches that jump ship all the time, but I kind of understand it, right? Because sometimes at certain jobs, there's so much that you can do that you can kind of hit your ceiling, and then you just got to find somewhere else. I think that's what Buzz does. I would have loved to see him personally stay at Marquette, but I love Shaka Smart there nonetheless. But
yes, yep, I agree.
Buzz goes to College Park. He leaves College Station and he goes to College Park. He's now in the Big Ten. What was your reaction to that? How do you feel about that? And what do you think the impact that Buzz Williams could have at Maryland?
Well, first, for me, I think the amount of people I saw on Twitter with the amount of list of coaches, realistic, like some of them were unrealistic. I've heard there was a couple of Maryland legends that people want as head coaches. I was like, that's nothing wrong with that, but I felt like there's nothing wrong with somebody fresh. And when I saw Buzz Williams' name, I was like, I'm not bad at it. I mean, to me, from seeing his introductory press conference, he definitely he brings a winning mentality. He brings energy, and to me, he's pretty much coming in with a whole new roster.
Fresh slate.
And especially pretty much how most either transferred, graduated, or some have gone into now are now in the NBA. I do know he brought some of his guys from A&M. So I mean, that was my concern. At first, I was like, we have no chemistry. Then when I look back on the roster, I was like, oh wait, back up. Like that makes sense. So we do have some chemistry. Um, I'm just really curious to see how it's all going to look. Um, but I think Buzz would be. I think Buzz would actually do well. Again, the Big Ten to me is always known as a football conference, and I'm curious to see him going from Texas A&M to the down to Maryland Big Ten, the transition. But I think he'll be fine. I do think he could actually get Maryland. I want to say the Elite Eight to Elite Eight this year.
Nah, I love that actually, because when I look at this roster, and I try not to get too invested in just looking at rosters on paper, because of course we got to see dudes stepping between the lines, compete. We got to see the adjustments being made, especially again, you mentioned, I always say this, year one, I never judged too critically or harshly because again, as you mentioned, it's a clean slate. He's just getting guys over there. But as you mentioned, you bring over Solomon Washington, who played for him at A&M for the past 3 seasons, 6'7", do it all for rebounds. He can run point guard, high level defender, high energy. He's tough. He fits everything that Buzz wants to do, right? You bring a Pharrell Payne, who of course started his career in the Big Ten at Minnesota, so he's very familiar with the conference. He was at A&M last year with Buzz, and then George Clarkson. Yeah, so I like this roster. You mentioned again the transfer wise, David Coit. You mentioned 5'11" guard from Northern Illinois, was at Kansas last year. Rockies Passmore is the name that I think.
That's a sleeper.
Yeah, I haven't listened to Buzz's interview so far like that since he's been there. I listened to one, but he didn't touch on the roster too in depth. But Rockies.
No, so far from what my understanding is, like the interviews I've heard, is this more of kind of adjusting to a new environment, the school, expectations and different things like that. So we probably will hear more about it as we get more closer to the media day and stuff like that.
Yeah, and I think Rockies Passmore immediately jumps off the page for me, right? 6'5", off guard. He gets to the rim, finishes through contact. One of the better defenders, I think. I thought he should have played way more last year at Kansas. I understand Kansas had a lot invested into that roster from an NIL standpoint, but Rockies Passmore could have helped them and impacted them in positive ways. So I'm not knocking Bill Self. Bill Self is an all-time great for a reason, but I think at Maryland now, with the new opportunity, fresh start, Rockies Passmore is going to be a name to look out for. And again, Miles Rice, right, was at Indiana last year. Indiana was tough, but the year before that, he was at Wazoo up there in the Pacific Northwest at Pullman, playing for Washington State. I think he should bounce back. I think he'll have a better season this year.
He's a redshirt junior this year, correct?
Yep.
Okay. That's what I thought.
Yeah. This dude, I mean, he started off his collegiate career with leukemia, right? Serious cancer.
That's right. Yep.
Yeah. Bounced back, had an amazing season at Washington State, and then, of course, was one of the top-rated, portal players last year before he went to Indiana. And then again this year, I think people are kind of sleeping on that, right? This dude has been in the conference. Again, he's going to have, I just think, a better overall situation playing for Maryland. Elijah Saunders, who I'm very familiar with, was out here at San Diego State, played at UVA last year, 6'8", forward. Another guy just gets the job done. You're going to notice, like, Buzz just loves dudes that play hard and defend at a high level. If you do that, you're going to play for Buzz Williams every single time.
One thing I also noticed about this roster compared to last year is size. Mostly every guy on this roster is like at least 6'3", in a range from 6'3" to 6'9" ish. And that's something that really stood out compared to last year's roster, where really it was Derek and Juju, and he didn't really come off the bench like that. Gosh, I can't think of the kid's name. He transferred. But yeah, those only two that stuck out in terms of size.
Yeah, man. I just think, you look at the SEC, right? The reason the SEC was as dominant as it was last year is because everybody was older for the most part, but you had that length and athleticism. That's why you've seen Arkansas, get to the Sweet 16. That's why you've seen Florida and Auburn in the Final Four, amongst others in the Elite Eight and Sweet 16. Like, when you have that type of skill with the combination of athleticism, length, and defense, is tough to beat. And I think that's why Buzz has had success at pretty much every stop that he's been at, because he has high quality guards and then he has everybody else that just does all the dirty work. And I think Maryland fans will come to appreciate Solomon Washington a lot this season because he just impacts and affects winning at a high level. So overall, man, I wouldn't be surprised. I think honestly, top 5 wouldn't be crazy to me whatsoever. Maybe even top 3 could be pushing it, as a Big Ten finish. But
Yeah,
overall, I think Buzz and his staff did a great job of assembling the squad, and we'll see how
great
they
job.
put together. So yeah,
It's
I'm
a,
looking forward.
and it's a mixture of a few red shirts, you got seniors, you got freshmen,
Mhm.
where I think again everybody has a different skill set, and that's nothing that really stood out to me is like there's somebody that can do something and not all do the same thing. That's something I noticed last year. That was kind of the issue with us was okay. We all have the same player at times that do the exact same thing. Nothing wrong with that,
Yeah,
but like if you're a guard, okay, I need a slasher, I need a cutter, I need I don't need just shooters, you know, or I need shooters. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, that's one that stuck out to me as well about this roster this year.
yeah, man. I'm not sleeping on Isaiah Watts either, who transferred over from Washington State. I'll definitely be looking out for him. And then you mentioned you got 2 freshmen who I think are both intriguing to say the least, right? Darius Adams, I'm very familiar with him. Went to La Lumiere, originally from New Jersey. Michigan
Mm-hmm.
State recruited him. He's like a 6'4" combo guard, really more of a shooting guard. I just think he's wired to score, right? He got the step backs. He's got all the different types of finishes at the rim, high level shooter, right? Off the ball, on the ball. He just gets buckets. And then Alex Austin, 6'10" forward out of Chicago, lefty, kind of like that glue guy. I think as he starts to get older, hopefully he develops within the system. He's going to be a guy that is going to be a staple to Buzz's early years at Maryland. So, I mean, again, man, this team on paper looks like one of the better teams in the Big Ten. It's just we got to see it pan out, but they got
For
a
sure.
squad, man. I think they got a squad.
And I was a little
So,
concerned too, especially once Kevin left. 'Cause I know we just had we had a couple commits, and then then there was a lot. The one particularly he decommitted. So I
mhm.
think to get like you said, you mentioned Darius, and then was it Josiah Harper?
Josiah Harper,
He's
yep.
from Josiah Harper friend, and then Alex Austin to get
Mhm.
them to commit. I think was definitely big. So I'm super excited, super excited.
Yeah, man. So that leads us off to Coach Frese on the women's side, right?
Mhm.
Because this is one of the best coaches in the country on the men's or the women's side in college basketball, in my opinion. She's been there for 20 plus years. She's produced a plethora of pros like Brianna Jones, you mentioned earlier, Alyssa Thomas, Christy Tolliver, Crystal Langhorn, right? This is a program that's produced top tier players. Even Shakira Austin and Angel Reese were both there for brief stints.
Yeah.
So Coach Freeze, man, I mean, again, a champion you mentioned in '06. She's been in 3 Final Fours, 4-time Big Ten Coach of the Year. She's pretty much accomplished dang near everything you could possibly accomplish at the college basketball level. So just please enlighten us about the impact of Coach Freeze, what she's meant to the university, what she's meant to this program, and just what she means to women's college basketball as a whole.
When I interviewed Brenda last year on my podcast, Big Nate Sports Talk, um, it just she learned a lot of it from one being a former player herself, but also two putting herself around good people. And then where she's from, she's from a blue collar state, Cedar Rapids, Iowa. We all know Iowa has produced great basketball players, um, and just for me, like Brenda most definitely deserves to be, in my opinion, a top 5 coach in terms of X's and O's. There's just no doubt about it, and especially uh, the last couple years. I know in terms of the transfers, all those different things like that. Brenda will put out a competitive team no matter what, and she's going to make. She's going to give. How can I say this? She will make something, nothing out of something. And when we look backward, because she is for the women's side, the third tenured coach since in the program's existence. So not too many programs can say that. And I think for what she's done for the game, what she will continue to do for the game, I just don't think there'll be another Brenda Frese. because it just, like she is a very an amazing coach, and just to see her with growing up watching her teams on TV, and now the ability to ask questions in the press room and interviewing her and seeing it like in person, it's like, damn, like okay.
Yeah, nah. Shout out to Coach Frese, man. Again, absolute legend. All the success in the world that you could possibly have, and again, when you have a coach that's been around for that long, especially in today's climate, that's a rarity, right? Two
Yes,
decades plus, right? So
and
I
especially dealing with NIL too.
exactly navigating this whole new NCAA landscape with the portal and NIL and just everything involved. And even with that, I mean, last year they ended up fourth or tying for third in the conference last year.
Yes,
With a 13-5 record, overall 25-8, lost in the Sweet 16 if I'm not mistaken.
yes, lost to
And
South Carolina painfully.
yep, man. And again, they had that legendary, I'm calling legendary game in the second round on their home floor against Bama, where Sarah Ashley Barker went off for 40 plus points. Maryland ended up winning. It was a whole bunch of lead changes. It was a high intensity game. Talk to me about that game real quick. I know I didn't really have that on the topic list, but
Sure.
that game was insanity. And I thought that game really signifies the importance of the NCAA tournament, especially the women's side of it, because that was a game. So just how'd you feel watching that game?
Well, it's funny. Like it actually started with the Norfolk State game, because a lot of people, I still laugh to this day about it, because a lot of people picked Norfolk State to beat Maryland. And I think a lot of people base it off of us losing to Iowa State last season.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I just woke up that day feeling like, oh, Maryland's going to do something different, and I think just covering the game and just seeing how everything went. It really started with Amari DeBerry, her and on the floor. I don't know what it was, but just her presence and the defense, those minutes she gave, especially with that shot, that's when the comeback really started. And then, especially just going down the stretch, it just was bucket after bucket. You could just feel like the anxiety, and it just wasn't fans, reporters. Shout out to Xavier Worry from WMAR, NBC2, ABC2 News. He was sitting next to me. I know there was some Alabama news media as well, but you could literally, you could feel the anxiety, especially going into overtime, especially when Kayleen got blocked and she dished it back out to Sarah. And I'm thinking, game, it's over. It was a great season. And she made it. I'm thinking, okay, it's a new game. And then I thought the game was over, and then obviously to go in the double overtime where Sarah was fouled. Yeah, but it was a very high stressful game, you could tell. But it was something Coach Frese said in the Norfolk State game, I think carried into the Alabama game. You got to go out there and earn it, and the girls earned it, and it was a really, really good win. But man, Cheyenne Sellers, shout out to her, Ali Kubek, Kayleen Schmeichel, Sarah Tibiasu is another person. I think is another player I think really should get her flowers, especially from the start of the year of last season to as season was progressing. I think just her confidence in finding her shot. She just made some. She was really clutch in that tournament, especially against South Carolina. We were right there. And I feel like if Allie doesn't foul out, I know this may sound controversial. I'm sorry, Gamecock fans, but that would have been another overtime game, in my personal opinion. So, yeah, it just was for that game. It was really, really special to watch and enjoy, because the Ohio State game, the last regular season game, a couple of friends teased me because like, you missed it. I mean, so, but no, it was good overall. But yeah, I feel like that took a couple minutes a lot of anxiety for sure.
Yeah, man. So as we fast forward to this 2025-26 season, I mean, you guys returned some key players. You mentioned Kayleen Schmeichel, Bree McDaniel, Brianna Williams. It's a few others that returned. Sailor Poffenbarger, right?
Mm-hmm.
This team looks like, and again, the Big Ten, especially last year, I thought was stacked and loaded. And I think it's kind of going to be the same this upcoming year. I mean, again, you look at, of course, you got the squads out here. USC, UCLA are both going to be in contention. I think my Spartans and my Lady Spartans should be a little bit better this year with some additions. Michigan returns a gang of talent, especially a whole bunch of freshmen who are going to be problems for the foreseeable future. So even Illinois was really good last year, right? It was just everywhere you look.
Genesis Bryant at that. Oh my, it's funny. That was it was funny. I was at that game. You mentioned Illinois, and we did it last year as well, when we honored the seniors, and that was like their first win against us in like I think 18 or something matchups, and I was like, good grief. So yeah, but shout out to Illinois, shout out to Genesis Bryant.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, good little program for Illinois for sure.
1000%. You're really seeing just the entire conference as a whole from top to bottom arise. Of course, Caitlin Clark, we got to salute. Of course, we've seen what she did at Iowa, right, with that program. Coach Bluter, of course, retired last year, but as a whole, just where do you think the Lady Terps end up stacking up this year? How do you feel about the roster, and how far do you think they can go in the NCAA tournament this year?
Well, a lot of it for me is I'm confident in the roster this year. I know, obviously, losing Shy, she was drafted with the Golden State Valkyries, WNBA. Sarah graduated. Christina, she'll be graduating this upcoming December. Then Amari, obviously, she graduated. So I mean, those are key players that are gone. I honestly, truthfully, I still think that sky's the limit. Biggest thing for me I'm looking for is Bree McDaniel, her coming off a devastating, well, that was devastating, but a season-ending injury. I think I think she'll be fine. In my opinion, really super thing for her is staying healthy. We did get a JUCO recruit, JUCO transfer, Izzy Azimamadou Isame. That is a sleeper for me. From I think is it Gulf Coast, Florida? Like, because she tore it. Yeah, because she tore her ACL, if I remember correctly, and she obviously redshirted this past season. So I'm looking for her to really have a breakout year. In my opinion, Salem Poffenbarger, I know, dealt with an ankle injury kind of down the stretch. Look for her to step up big now that Allie transferred to Florida State. That was something. But Brenda brought in a good group. She brought in two guards, Rainey Watson and Ava Mack. I think they're going to be two guards. I think that are going to be kind of integrated in the offense at some point. Ava McKinney, look for her to be big, make an all Big Ten team this year. Brianna Williams, I look for her to take a big step. But we have depth. That's one thing that stood to me with this roster. And we got a couple players from overseas as well. So one thing I'm curious to know is just really just kind of getting the swing back into things, like Breeze coming off her injury. I know Brenda will be looking for Kayleen to kind of take that step forward. Kayleen had showed flashes, so I think she can be the leading scorer. But I mean, other than that, I still think Maryland will be a top 3, top 4 team this year. There is still my sleeper to win, to finish second or third in the Big Ten. But I mean, you have USC and the UCLA, and then like Ohio State. They lost some, like Cody McMahon's now at Ole Miss. So I know that team's not really going to be the same. I know Michigan's it's a tough team. Wisconsin, I know they went through a bit of a transition. But you never know what to expect with the Big Ten. But Maryland, for me, they say what you want. I still think we'll finish third or fourth. And on top of it, how everything kind of transpired just before the portal ended. I still, if we with the moves, I think they would have been the best team in the Big Ten if Allie stayed and Gracie stayed. I know that may sound weird, but because I especially we had a true center, and then she, I don't know what happened, just decided, oh, I'll go back to Penn State, and then Allie transferred. So, but Maryland will be fine. Maryland will be fine. I'm not concerned.
Yeah. Again, it's one of them instances where as long as you got the coach that y'all got, Coach Frese, you guys are always going to be in the mix. You guys are always going to be competitive. You guys are always going to be playing at a high level. So I'm not worried about them at all. As you mentioned, I think it's going to be tough, just like every year. I mean, again, last year it was just stacked, right, from top to bottom. You put so many teams to the NCAA tournament. So I'm definitely very, very excited to see what the Lady Terps do in 25, 26, because it's a lot of intriguing parts and pieces for that team that could lead you guys, to a very long season and a successful season at that. So, yeah, man, shout out to them. Shout out to Coach Frese. And Nathan, man, we appreciate you. If you got a chance, please just plug anything where we can find you on all social media platforms. Plug any work that you got, on the way out, man. We appreciate you, man.
Yeah, for sure. You guys can follow me on Twitter at one Nathan Snell. You can also subscribe to the YouTube channel. That's how you see my name, Nathan Snell. You can just type in Google search or YouTube search Big Nate Sports Talk. On the road to 1K subscribers. I do have an announcement at some point. I'll make that probably towards the end of the month. You're going to find more work on Team EBS Media. Today the Ravens played, so I know meet deadline with that. So good win for the Ravens. But also tomorrow, I'm going to cover the Washington Mystics game as they play the Los Angeles Sparks. That game is 3 p.m. So the Washington Mystics have a chance to stay in the playoff hunt. So I'm looking forward to cover that game. That's actually the first game this season I'll be at. But yeah, man, that's where you guys can really find me. Find me on Twitter, find me on YouTube. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Shout out to the rookie, Sonia Citron and Kiki Uriah Finn, SoCal's finest, LA's finest out there doing her thing in the district, man. They both been holding it down. Two of the better rookies in the W right now, and they're going to continue to be very, very good for the Mystics for the foreseeable future, man. But again, we appreciate you. Shout out to Team MBS Media. This is another episode of Talkin Hoops with Kev Luke. Please like, comment, subscribe, rate, review, and share. Y'all stay blessed out here. Stay safe. Continue to hopefully enjoy your summer and enjoy the fall. Football season is upon us, man. Y'all stay good. Be easy. Basketball's around the corner. And as always, peace and love. Gone.